gentlemen, I will show you some footage of some really cool echinoderms and then show you something about the evolution of these animals, new research which just came out. So this is a crinoid, and in that crinoid lives a crinoid squat lobster. So the crinoid squat lobster is one of these crustaceans which somewhat look like a crab, but they're not a crab. So they have just a reduced or folded hind body. So this animal lives its whole adult life in this crinoid. And here you have another close-up. I was actually quite lucky to get such a good view of this animal, because normally they're really hidden in between the arms of the crinoid. And the crinoid, of course, is our echinoderm here, which we're featuring now. The squat lobster doesn't like light very much, and just after probably a minute of filming it decided to move away. There was not just the squat lobster, there was also a crinoid shrimp, and not even one of them but two. So you can see them here, highly camouflaged animals, which spend all their time on this larger echinoderm. So fascinating example of commensalism in nature underwater, highly camouflaged animals. Now here there is a sea urchin, obviously, all these spines. In the front you can see the anal bulb, and there is a fish, which is a crinoid clingfish, which also exclusively almost lives among these urchins. I've seen them on rare occasions free swimming, but I think then something bad must have happened in the sense that they have lost their urchin. And so they really like the camouflage, and obviously they like the protection. Another echinoderm, a large cushion sea star, and yet again they're tiny shrimp living on this larger animal. So here, this time we have a kind of sea cucumber which is buried in the sand, and just the tentacles are sticking out. So yet another species of echinoderm which we're looking at. So this is a filter feeder. These guys are typically only active at night, or much more active at night. So it's rare to see the tentacles out during the day, but at night you see them once in a while. And I think it's really interesting how they move the tentacles to the mouth once they've caught something. So here there is a different angle. You see that a little bit better, that the tentacles, they're swaying in the current, and once they've caught something, they contract and move it towards the mouth. Very interesting animal, and very unique feeding style. So a lot of sea cucumbers are grazing, but not this one, filter feeder. Now, what do we have here? We have a sea urchin again, and this is a so-called flower urchin. This is actually a very, very venomous animal. So if you get stung by these, you can be in real trouble. So these modified spines here with these discs carry a very strong venom, and it causes trouble breathing or even respiratory arrest. So what is particularly curious about this animal, they are in this group of decorator urchins. So you can see there is a piece of rubber on top of the urchin, and this did not fall there. So you can see the little tube feet of the urchin, and the tube feet are actually keeping that in place. So there are a couple of reasons why the urchins do this. They weigh themselves down when they search, and it's camouflage, and it's also, during the day at least, it's a kind of sunscreen. So if you are only 2 meters deep in tropical waters, you get a lot of sun, and you need sun protection, just like humans do. So this is the strategy employed by these animals. And you can see these little claspers, which are pedicellariae. So in evolution, these emerged from spines, and now they're mostly there to remove dirt and parasites from the body skins of these animals. So always a real pleasure to encounter these beautiful urchins. You just can't touch them. And what else do we have? We have a basking star. So this is a relative of the brittle stars, again an echinoderm of course, and these are completely folded up during the day, and at night they would unfold, and they also filter feeders. So I saw all of these echinoderms, believe it or not, during the same dive, and here is a close-up of this brittle star where you can see the branched arms. Now, we've looked at the echinoderm, a feather star, which is essentially a filter-feeding echinoderm before, but there's another one and it's walking. So these animals are not completely stationary at all. And even though they don't have a centralized brain, what they can do, they can still coordinate their arms in a way that they can crawl along the seafloor. So it's not clear to me where it's trying to go. Maybe it's trying to go deeper, or maybe it's trying to go into stronger current to get more food. And it's a very curious crawling style where they extend their arms on one side and they curl them up on another side, and then they make their way. So I'm showing you this footage in time lapse, of course, sped up 4 times. And this is a hard urchin, which is also crawling along the sand. So if you speed up echinoderm footage, these are actually a very interesting locomotory behaviors to look at. And here it's also making its way over the sand quite swiftly. Now, I also want to share some interesting new scientific insight about the early evolution of echinoderms from a paper by Rahman and Zamora with you. So, this highly insightful paper first discusses these very early echinoderms from the Cambrian, which essentially, for the lack of a better word, look like armored worms. So they're not 5-fold symmetric yet, like modern echinoderms. So you see one of these. These are tiny animals, by the way, just a couple of millimeters long. And the beef of this very well-written paper is in this very nice figure, which shows that at first you have these Cambrian forms, which are essentially, flattened worms, and they have a stereome in common with the living echinoderms, which is the kind of plated armor which all echinoderms have. And then in subsequent steps in evolution, later on, what happened was these animals became more asymmetric. And then on top of that, they developed this ambulacral system, which is this, very specialized system with, using this tube feed. And then they became 5-fold symmetric. They lost the axial region. And in the end, they developed into the 5 current living echinoderms, which are, sea stars, brittle stars, sea cucumbers, crinoids, and sea urchins, of course. So very insightful, and the authors conclude that in the evolution of echinoderms, really the stereome is the only thing that's shared by all of these. They first occur about 518 million years ago, and they were diverse from the early times on, and then really only later on did they develop into these very peculiar 5-fold symmetric animals, which we see now. So I hope you enjoyed all of this.